No name on the door. That's the first thing you notice. No velvet rope, no guest list clipboard, no bouncer with an earpiece and a grudge. Nothing. Just an unremarkable black door on a street that looks like every other street in Mayfair, except this one costs more. The people who belong here already know the door. Everyone else keeps walking. Inside, the ceiling vaults 30 feet. Obsidian stone walls absorb the light before it can touch anything it shouldn't. A jazz quartet plays something low and searching from a sunken performance well. Not entertainment, more like weather. You feel it in your sternum before you hear it with your ears. The bar runs the length of the west wall in a single vein of marble. Cocktails arrive silently. No one asks for them. The staff simply know. This isn't a venue. It's an ecosystem. Wealth has its own climate, and tonight it's hovering around 60 degrees of quiet menace. We push through the crowd, tech money and expensive casual wear, political donors who have learned to dress the part, two members of the cabinet pretending not to know each other, until we find her. Jane Adebayo, 32, 5'7" in heels that aren't hers. Her dress is midnight blue, floor length, borrowed from a colleague with better taste and no questions. She wears it with the particular poise of someone who has rehearsed this, the tilt of the chin, the ease of the stance. Her eyes are working. They move across the room with the focus of a woman who was calculating, not socializing. She doesn't drink the champagne. She is a crisis PR strategist. She spends her professional life making the wrong things look acceptable. Tonight, she is not supposed to be here. She lied her way in. She's investigating a story, corruption tied to the merger of Varelli Capital and a firm called Solon, financial data that doesn't reconcile, projections that look manufactured. She has been building this for 6 weeks, and tonight the man who can confirm it is somewhere in this room. She moves towards Senator Miriam Chase. Above the ground floor, separated by steel-railed glass, elevated, observant, Calum Varelli stands with a glass of single malt he hasn't touched since it was poured 20 minutes ago. He's 38, the kind of face that's been refined by time rather than softened. He wears a navy suit that fits like an argument nobody wins. No watch, no excess. He watches the room below with the patience of a man who has learned that power is mostly just the willingness to wait longer than everyone else. His eyes find Jane in approximately 4 seconds. He doesn't know who she is, but he knows she doesn't belong, and he knows she's been watching the senator's table for 40 minutes, and he knows she's not press, and she's not idle, and the champagne flute she's been holding is still full. He sets his scotch down. He moves. Jane positions herself at the outer edge of the senator's booth, phone in hand, reading nothing, close enough to hear. The senator leans across the table. Varelli's merger projections, if the numbers can't be verified before the announcement. Jane needs 30 more seconds. The senator's aide materializes at her shoulder like something summoned. Aide, can I help you with something? Not a genuine question, a security mechanism wearing the costume of hospitality. Jane, warm, slightly rueful. Sorry, I'm just waiting. Calum said he'd meet me around here. You know what he's like about punctuality. She says it with just the right shade of intimacy. The aide processes. Senator Chase glances over, expression shifting from hostile to calculating. The aide retreats. Jane breathes. A hand lands at her waist. Not a brush, not accidental. A grip, palm flat, possessive. The champagne tilts. Her entire nervous system fires at once. His voice at her ear, low enough that only she receives it. Calum, barely not touching her ear. Kiss me. She doesn't breathe. Calum continued, or they'll find out you're lying. The whole room sharpens. Senator Chase watching, the aide returning, a photographer from a financial publication who has been circling all evening, camera lifted now, aimed. Jane runs the math. Walk away, she loses everything she's built. Her cover, her investigation, her mother's surgery fund, 94,000 pounds of pressure, the reason she crossed every line to be in this room. Calum turns her, one smooth rotation, hand moving from waist to the small of her back, face to face, less than a foot between them. He looks down at her, the eyes of a man who has calculated this and found the outcome acceptable. His thumb drags, slow and almost lazy, across her lower lip. Calum, eyes on hers, steady. Make it convincing. Jane tilts her chin up, and she kisses him. It isn't soft. It's the kiss of someone who has chosen survival over dignity and is furious about the choice. Her hand closing on his lapel, pulling rather than receiving, her body angled forward because if she's going to do this, she is going to do this on her own terms, even while she loses them. His arm tightens at her back, and he kisses her back with a focus that startles her. Not performance, something more concentrated. The photographer's flash fires. Once, twice, 3 times. When they separate, Jane's breath is unsteady, and she is immediately furious about that. She's a professional. She keeps her face still. Calum looks like he won something. He steers her forward, toward the senator, toward the cameras, into the bright, irreversible center of the lie. Calum, carrying warmly across the near space. There she is. Sorry, I lost you in the crowd. Jane, measured smile. I wasn't lost. He leans close. Only she hears it. Yes, you were. The booth seals behind them, soundproofing so complete that the jazz becomes a memory. Calum sits. Jane stands. He places a folder on the table. Her full name tabs the cover. She stares at it like something that crawled in from outside. Jane Adebayo, 32, independent crisis communications, 94,000 pounds in medical debt, your mother's cardiac treatment. Her follow-up surgery with Dr. Ansem Bo is scheduled in 11 weeks. The NHS cap doesn't cover it. Jane says nothing. Her face is glass. You accessed this club under a false identity, told 4 separate individuals you were my fiancé, and positioned yourself beside a senator with a recording-capable phone. That's not journalism. That's corporate intelligence gathering. The legal exposure is real. What do you want? 3 weeks. My merger closes in 22 days. I need visible, credible stability, a relationship that neutralizes 3 narratives circulating around my board. In return, your mother's procedure funded in full, direct to the hospital, the medical debt acquired and discharged. All of it. Clean. You want a fake fiancé. I want a competent professional who is already photographed kissing me. The situation exists. I'm proposing we manage it. And if I refuse? You've kissed me in front of 60 people and a camera. That story exists whether you participate or not. The only question is whether you profit from it. You're a piece of work. I've heard worse. Sit down. She sits. Not because he told her to, because she has made her decision and her legs are tired from performing all evening. My own room. Of course. You don't touch me unless there's an audience. He looks at her for a beat too long. Then I'd suggest you not look at me the way you did in the lobby. I don't know what that means. Yes, you do. He holds the door open. She walks through it without looking back. In the booth, alone, something moves across his face, something he would not perform in company. Then it's gone. The penthouse is 43 floors up and designed to feel higher. Glass on 3 sides. Stone, steel, matte black. The apartment of a man who has learned not to put too much of himself into any fixed location. Jane has been here 2 nights. She's already mapped the floor plan by ear. Old habits. A knock. The door opens before she can answer. Calum enters. White shirt, no jacket, sleeves rolled. He takes in the open laptop, the printed documents, the intensity she hasn't bothered to hide. He doesn't say anything about it. Calum. There's a photographer on the street below. We'll need to be visible at breakfast. The cafe on the corner works. He's about to leave. He stops. Calum. How long has your mother been ill? Jane's hands go still on the keyboard. Jane. That's not part of the arrangement. Calum. I'm not asking for the arrangement. She closes the laptop. He is simply standing in the doorway. There is nothing tactical in his expression, only asking. Jane. Deciding. 18 months. This is the second surgery. The first one bought her 2 years, then the ventricle started failing again. Her surgeon thinks the second procedure has a strong prognosis. We just need to get her to the table. Calum. What's she like? Jane. Caught off guard. My mother? Calum. Yes. Jane looks at him for a long moment, looking for the angle, not finding one. Jane. She's annoying. She asks too many questions and cries at inappropriate television and still calls me every Sunday at 9 a.m. even when I'm working. A beat. Jane. Quieter. She's the best person I know. Calum nods. No comment, no sentiment. He simply asked, and now he knows, and he carries it without making anything of it. He leaves. Jane stares at the closed door, opens her laptop, finds suddenly that she has lost the thread of what she was looking at. Window table. 2 coffees. Croissants, neither of them is eating. A photographer is across the street and they both know it, and neither acknowledges it. Tell me what you know about the Solon irregularities. Not here. We're in public. We're a couple. Couples talk. Tell me how you got into the vault. One of your board members brings the same guest every 3rd visit. His wife doesn't know. His assistant does. His assistant owed a favor to someone who owed one to me. And you didn't drink the champagne. Never drink on an op. An op. A job. He looks at her with something that isn't quite a smile, but occupies the same space. You're more interesting than I initially assessed. You assessed me in under a minute. I was generous with the time. The photographer lowers his camera. He got what he needed. So did they, though neither could say exactly what that was. Jane is waiting for Calum in the lobby of Varelli Capital, a vast atrium of glass and pale stone. She's early. She's checking her phone. She doesn't notice Soren Valek until he is already beside her. Not walking toward her, already there, the way predators work, no approach, just sudden adjacency. Soren, 55, silver hair, immaculate posture, a face that has been curated for decades into something that reads as trustworthy. He speaks before she can orient herself. Ms. Adebayo, I've been wanting to meet you. Calum speaks of you. She extends her hand. He takes it. His grip is dry and precise and holds exactly 1 second longer than it should. Mr. Valek, good to meet you. I'm sure. How is your mother? Jane's internal temperature drops 3 degrees. She doesn't show it. She has been trained by 6 years of crisis work not to show anything in a room she can't yet read. She's well, thank you. Good. Dr. Bo is excellent. 11 weeks, I believe, for the procedure. A beat of silence that is not silence. Soren continued, still warm, still smiling. Surgery at that level, there are so many variables, aren't there? Scheduling, funding, institutional support. It's remarkable how quickly circumstances can change when institutions reconsider their commitments. He says it the way you say it when you want someone to hear the sentence beneath the sentence. Jane hears both. I do hope Calum's current situation resolves cleanly, for everyone's sake. He pats her arm once, the pat of a man who has done what he came to do. It was lovely to finally meet you. He walks away without hurry. He doesn't need to hurry. Jane stands in the lobby with her phone in her hand and her pulse working harder than she would like. She replays every word he said, the warmth of it, the precision of it, the way he named the surgeon, named the date. This wasn't a warning. It was a demonstration. He wanted her to understand exactly how close he is to everything she loves. And he delivered that understanding in the tone of a man introducing himself at a garden party. Jane has worked in crisis communications for 6 years. She has sat across from CEOs and politicians and men who ended careers over breakfast. She has never, until this moment, felt genuinely physically afraid. She opens a message to Calum, types, "We need to talk." Then she deletes it, because if Soren has surveillance on this building, and the lobby interaction was deliberate enough that she must assume he does, sending that message tells him something, shows him the crack he just made. She puts the phone away. She makes her face the same face it was 30 seconds ago. She waits. A storm has come in off the North Sea and is working its displeasure out against the glass walls of the penthouse. The city below has dissolved into gray and water. The apartment is warm against it. One lamp, Jane's documents spread across the low table, a glass of wine she poured an hour ago and hasn't touched. She found something today. Not just irregularities, a name, a set of transactions, a shell company in the Caymans that routes back through a nominee director to Soren Valick, Varelli Capital Board member, silver-haired and warm, and apparently running a parallel financial structure that would make the Solon merger catastrophic for him personally. The corruption isn't Calum's, it's Soren's, and someone sent her here to find Calum's name instead. She's sitting with that thought when Calum comes in from his study. Jacket off, tie gone. He reads the room, her posture, the papers, the quality of the silence. Calum. You found it. Jane. Soren Valick. He moves to the window, stands with his back to her. Jane continued. He's been routing money through a shell structure that makes the Solon merger catastrophic for him. So he manufactured a corruption narrative, falsified projections, fed them to journalists and government contacts and to me. He needed someone credible and desperate and at arm's length. She stands. Her voice is level, but there's something underneath it, fracturing. Jane continued. My mother's medical debt. Soren's fund acquired it from the original creditor 14 months ago. He manufactured the desperation that sent me into that club. I was placed here. He placed me here. She stops. Jane continued. Very quiet, very still. You knew. Calum turns from the window. Calum. I recognized the pattern when you came in. Soren has used versions of it before. Jane. Fracturing openly now. You kept me here. You blackmailed me and kept me here. Calum. I kept you close because I needed to confirm you weren't complicit, and because if Soren thought you'd been neutralized, he'd push forward. Jane. Sharp. Fast. You used me to bait him. Calum. I protected you from him. Jane, those are not the same thing. She steps toward him. Her hands are not quite shaking, but very close. Calum doesn't flinch. Jane continued. He spoke to me in your lobby on day 6. He knew my mother's surgeon's name. He knew the date of her procedure. He said it to my face and smiled while he said it, and I stood there and I held it together, and I didn't tell you because I thought. Her voice does something. Something she doesn't allow it to do in front of anyone. She catches it before it goes further, but the catch is visible. The effort of it is visible. Jane continued. Ragged, unguarded. I thought I was still in control of this. I thought I was the one working the room. I've been inside Soren's operation, Calum, inside his actual financial structure, and he was just in a lobby saying my mother's surgeon's name like it was weather. She stops. She turns away from him. She puts her hand flat against the wall and stands there for a moment with her back to him, collecting herself, hating that she needs to collect herself, hating that she's doing it in front of him. Kayla moves toward her, slow, like approaching someone standing on a ledge. Calum, low, weight in it. He spoke to you on day 6. Jane, not turning around. Yes. Calum, and you didn't tell me. Jane, I thought I could handle it. Calum, Jane. She turns. Her eyes are dry. She has not cried and she will not cry, and her jaw is set with the effort of that. But her face is stripped of performance for the first time since she walked into the vault 12 days ago. He sees her right now, the way she actually is, without the professional composure, without the angle, and something in his expression breaks open quietly. Calum, the only honest thing he said tonight. I'm sorry. I watched him in that lobby. I should have warned you before you encountered him alone. It's such a small admission for a man who controls everything, but it reaches her. She can see the cost of it, how much it takes for a man like him to say those words. Jane, barely above a whisper. Tell me to stop digging one more time. Calum, stop digging. Jane, make me. He closes the distance between them. He kisses her. Nothing polite about it, nothing staged. This is the kiss the lobby kiss was pretending to be. It carries 8 days of restraint, a storm outside, 2 people who have spent a week pretending they don't feel exactly this. Rough, direct, his hand coming up to frame her jaw with a certainty that would feel presumptuous if it didn't feel like the only honest thing in the building. Jane's hand presses flat against his chest, not pushing, just confirming that he's real, that this is real, that she hasn't completely lost her grip on what's happening to her. When they break, foreheads close, both breathing unsteadily. Jane, rough. This doesn't fix what you did. Calum, equally rough, equally honest. No, it doesn't. She doesn't move away. He doesn't move away. The rain drives against the glass. The city remains invisible below. It is just this room, this lamp, these 2 people, and everything they have yet to say. Soren stands at the floor-to-ceiling window with his hands behind his back, looking out at the city the way men like him look at things they believe they own. When Calum enters, he doesn't turn immediately. He lets the silence do work. Soren. She's been in the documents, your guest, your fiancé. Calum. My house, my guest. Soren. Turning now, unhurried. She found the Cayman structure, didn't she? Not a question. The way Soren says it, as something he already knew she'd find, as though her finding it was part of a plan that has already moved past that point, is worse than denial would have been. It implies he's 3 moves ahead of everyone in the room. Calum. She's smarter than most of the people in this building. Soren. walking toward him slowly. Yes, that's the problem. A smart woman with nothing left to lose and full access to your home. I put her there, Calum. I know exactly what she's capable of because I designed the circumstances that made her capable of it. He stops a foot away. No aggression. He doesn't need aggression. He has the patience of a man who wins by making other people make mistakes. Soren, you've made her a liability by caring about her, which means I can use her in ways I couldn't before. She finds something compromising. It comes from your house with your access. She goes public. The merger collapses and you're attached to the source. She disappears. He lets that word sit in the air for a moment. Then she simply becomes a woman who was briefly associated with the complicated man and made unfortunate choices. Calum's jaw hardens by 1 millimeter, the only tell he allows. Calum, low. Walk away from the merger, take your fund position and walk. You'll have enough. Soren, almost amused. I always do. But enough was never what this was about. He moves past Calum toward the door. Without turning back, the announcement is in 8 days. Give her to me. Put her in front of a camera making the wrong statement and we'll call it clean. Calum, no. Soren, finally stopping. Then I hope you've said everything you want to say to her, because the next time she walks into a building in this city, I'll be the one who decides if she walks out. He leaves. The click of the door is very quiet, the quietest threat Calum has ever received. He stands alone in the office for a long moment. Then he pulls his phone and calls a number with no contact name. Calum. Low. Definitive. Move everything up. We go at the announcement. And put someone on Jane. Visible. Close. She doesn't know they're there. He hangs up. He stands at the window. Below, the city. Indifferent. Ongoing. For the first time in a very long time, Calum Varelli looks like a man who was not certain of the outcome. The night before the announcement, Jane can't sleep. She's been awake for 2 hours, sitting at her window in the dark, looking at the city 43 floors below. She has the Soren file complete. She has more than enough. She has, for the first time in 6 weeks, the sensation of holding something that could end the right person. She should be satisfied. She's a professional, and professionals feel satisfied when the work is done. Instead, she feels something large and unresolved in her chest. She gets up, goes to the kitchen, fills a glass of water, stands at the island in the dark. Calum appears in the hallway. He's still in his clothes from the day. He hasn't slept either. He sees her at the island and he stops. They look at each other across the kitchen in the dark. Jane. Quiet. After tomorrow. Calum. Yes. Jane. The arrangement ends. Calum. The arrangement has been over for a while. A beat. She looks at the water glass. Jane. I need you to tell me honestly. Tomorrow, is there a version of what you're planning where I get burned regardless of how it plays out? He crosses to the island, stands across from her, doesn't look away. Calum. Yes, there's a version where Soren is faster than I've planned for, where the sequence doesn't hold, where the evidence doesn't surface the way it needs to. In that version, you get caught in the collapse. Your name stays on the wrong documents. The fraud sticks to you instead of him. Jane's jaw is very still. Jane. How likely is that version? Calum. 20%. Maybe less. I've done everything I can to reduce it, but I can't reduce it to 0. Jane nods, slowly. And you're telling me this now. Calum. I should have told you on day 5. I'm telling you now because I won't go into tomorrow without you knowing the real odds. She stands with it. The city below, the quiet kitchen, the 20%. Jane. Finally. Low. My whole professional life I have walked into rooms knowing the room could go wrong, and I've done it anyway, because the story mattered more than the risk. She looks at him. The story still matters. He reaches across the island. His hand covers hers. Not a move, not a performance, just covering it. Calum. After tomorrow. Jane. Ask me after tomorrow. She goes back to her room. He stays at the island for a long time in the dark, with his hand flat where hers was. The announcement event. A converted Victorian warehouse in Shoreditch. Exposed steel, glass brick, 300 people, in the kind of business casual that implies they can afford not to try. Virelli Capital merging with Solentech. The deal of the year. The number in the billions. Jane stands near the back, in her best dress. She arrived late. She hasn't spoken to Calum. She knows what's about to happen, broadly in the way that someone who has agreed to stand in a 20% chance of professional destruction can know it. But knowing and being in the room where it happens are entirely different experiences. She watches Calum on stage, composed and clear and exactly what the room needs. He speaks about the merger the way people speak about things they believe in. The room responds to him the way rooms respond to men who have decided what they want. Jane watches him and feels the specific terrible ache of caring about the outcome of someone else's risk. Then, a journalist at the front raises a document. Jane can't see it from here. She reads the ripple, the murmur moving outward from the front row, photographers shifting, PR staff in the wings straightening, a dozen phones lifting simultaneously. Journalist. Mr. Virelli, can you respond to evidence that the woman you've publicly described as your fiancée was engaged in deliberate corporate intelligence gathering inside your home? Documents obtained today suggest Miss Adebayo accessed proprietary merger files without authorization. The room erupts in the quiet, expensive way. 100 people making sounds of consideration simultaneously. A camera swings to Jane. Security materializes at her elbow. Security. Low, professional. Miss Adebayo, we need to ask you to step out. On stage, Calum's gaze finds her across the room. His face doesn't break, not a muscle. He looks at her and there is nothing she can read in it. She goes, because she agreed to go, because she told him in a dark kitchen at 2 a.m. that the story mattered more than the risk, because she trusts him. She trusts him and his face gave her nothing, and she is walking toward the door of a room that is publicly destroying her reputation, and she is doing it on faith, which is the most terrifying thing she has ever done. The cameras catch her leaving. The stock ticker above the exit is already moving. Cold November air, the kind of damp that gets into your coat immediately. Jane stands on the pavement, and she lets herself, just for a moment, be exactly where she is. Not calculating, not performing, just standing in the ruin of what just happened to her professionally and feeling the full weight of it. Her phone buzzes. Unknown number. A text. Trust me. Don't run. She stares at it. Then something happens that the script has been building toward for 22 days. Jane Adebayo sits down on the wet pavement curb and she puts her face in her hands. Not crying, she doesn't cry, but the composure, the 6-year-old professional armor, the tilt of the chin, the face that keeps the room from knowing what it cost, it leaves her. Just for 30 seconds, completely. She sits on the curb in her best dress in Shoreditch in November, and she is undone. Because it isn't just the reputation, it's her mother's surgery which exists only because she trusts a man who blackmailed her. It's 6 weeks of lies built on top of a manipulation she didn't know she was inside. it's the storm night and the kitchen at 2 a.m. and the 20% she agreed to absorb. And she agreed because she looked at him and something in her said yes without consulting the rest of her. And now she's sitting on a wet curb in Shoreditch, and the only thing she has to stand on are 3 words from an unknown number. Trust me. She looks up. The gray London sky, the ordinary street, 2 pigeons on a bin lid. She breathes. She stands. She turns to face the building. Through the glass wall beside the entrance, Jane watches. The screen behind the stage changes. Security footage, boardroom camera, Soren Valick and 2 men Jane recognizes from the shell company structure. On the table between them, the document naming her, being prepared. The date stamp reads 3 days ago. The room goes still. Another clip, a private office. Soren's financial data on a monitor, shell routes, transaction records, numbers that match precisely what Jane traced. Then audio. Soren's voice clear and damning and recorded in a room he believed was private. Soren, on recording. She's disposable. We use her until the announcement, then we release the filing. She carries the narrative. We take the exit clean. The room has become a held breath. On stage, Calum stands with a quiet that is its own kind of sentence. Calum, calm, absolute. I authorized the leak of Jane Adebayo's name to this room because I knew Soren Valick would interpret it as my capitulation, confirmation that the one person who had actually found his structure had been neutralized. I needed him to believe the coast was clear. He looks toward the glass wall. He knows she's there. Calum continued. Jane Adebayo did not steal from this company. She found the fraud my own board failed to surface in 3 years. Whatever her original purpose in entering the vault, what she found inside my home was the truth. I owe her a debt for that, not the other way. Soren, 4 rows back, turns. 2 officers appear at his side. He doesn't run. Men like Soren never run. They calculate, and the calculation has finally come up short. Through the glass, Jane watches him walk out with an escort. She watches it the way you watch something you built without knowing you were building it, arrive at its conclusion. Then, she stands very still for a long moment in the cold air. The stock ticker above the entrance is reversing. They come through the door together. November evening. The air is sharp and damp, and the pavement is still wet. The street moves around them. Taxis, people on phones. London entirely indifferent to the shape of what just happened inside that building. They walk, not toward anything specific, just forward. His hand finds hers. Not performance, not staged. Just a hand finding another hand in the dark. She lets it. Jane, after a moment. You drafted that document on day 5. Calum. Yes. Jane. Before you knew whether I was working for Soren. Calum. I knew by day 3 you weren't. Jane. What happened on day 3? He looks at her. Calum. I told you about your mother, and you didn't ask me for anything when you did it. Jane. Is quiet for a moment. Jane. That's a small thing to trust. Calum. I've never had good luck with large things. I trust the small ones. She walks with that. The city opens up ahead of them, wet and golden and relentless. The story will be in every outlet by morning. Her name will be attached to the correct narrative this time. Her mother's surgery will happen. The foundation will be hers to build. Jane Adebayo, who walked into a private members club under a false identity 6 weeks ago, with £94,000 of desperation and a story she thought she was writing, is walking out of an entirely different one. She spent 22 days pretending. None of it, it turns out, was pretend.